Okay, well, we're going to get going here. Thanks everybody for attending. This I just noticed when we were doing this that this is actually 2 years. We started in April 2 years ago with these virtual town halls, so that sure happened fast. So thanks everybody for coming and for the special time. Normally we're at 10:30 in the morning Central Time, but since we are lucky enough to have a couple of Australians with us, we're kind of giving them a break, and it's still really early there, but not as bad as it would have been. So thanks for doing that. And I also want to make sure we thank our member companies. The Excavation Safety Alliance is free to all of you attendees. We think it's really important to be able to provide all this education free of charge to stakeholders, but that would not be possible without these member companies choosing to join. So we really thank them. And if any of your companies are interested, let us know. So this is intended to be an open forum. So today will be just a tiny bit different because each of these people has a unique public awareness program. So they're going to give a little talk about that, but we really want it to be Q&A. Ask questions because they probably are doing things different than you are because they're coming at it from a different point of view. So we do want to keep it flowing with questions. And, normally we say we really want to focus on, potential solutions, but I think they're already doing that. So I probably don't even need to really stress that today, but it is a discussion. So if you want to say something, just type it right into the chat. We'll be monitoring that, or you can use the raise hand icon, and we'll try and catch those as well. And if you do end up getting called on, just be sure you unmute your microphone. I think it's typically up in the upper right. And kind of lastly, before we really get going, is one comment is to try and keep your comments relatively brief because we really like to make sure everybody gets to participate. So if you can make your good point and then kind of move on. This is mostly for the attendees. That would be awesome. And this will be, or is being recorded and will be on the ESA YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch it later. And in Australia, they can watch it the first time later on today, hopefully. The last thing before we get going is at the conclusion, what we do is we go to each panel member and kind of ask them for the one key thing they would pass on as kind of like a moving forward tip for people. So trying to isolate that one really important thing. And then we will conclude right at 3:30. So we'll start wrapping it up a little before that. So I shouldn't say 3:30 because that's different for all of you, but an hour from now. So with that, we are going to get cooking here, and pardon the accidental pun. So our first person is Glenn Cook, also known as Cookie, and he's going to talk about his public awareness program, the unique aspects of it, and a little bit about his background. So take it away, Cookie.
All right, Scott, thanks. Yes, and welcome to the future. It is Friday morning, 5:30, nice and early here. I've got those hockey scores there for you, Mike. If you're online, Mike Sullivan there in Canada, got those hockey scores ready for you to go. Just send me my carton of beer and we'll get straight into it. All right. Look, my name is Glenn Cook. Everyone just calls me Cookie. Quite happy for everyone to do that. Look, I work for the largest power line distribution company in the Southern Hemisphere in Queensland, Australia. We've got about 220,000 kilometres of power lines. It's like enough power lines to wrap around the earth 5 times. So we've got a lot of infrastructure that gets accidentally contacted by mainly workers, to be honest, particularly in the overhead power line space. So I sort of focus on more of the overhead power line stuff because we have 25 overhead power line strikes to 1 underground. And then I work very closely with Mel from Before You Dig Australia, and they really promote our underground awareness. So I'll just leave it at that.
That sounds great. Thanks. And then we'll have Mel talk a little bit about her background and their program.
Thanks. So I'm Mel, CEO of Before You Dig Australia. Many of you may have known us in our past life as the Dial Before You Digs, which used to be 7 state-based businesses around Australia. And we've recently, over the last 2 years, merged to become a single national safety partner here in Australia, known as Before You Dig. So that's taking all of the 7 state-based businesses, and we now run as a truly single national organisation, which gives us the ability to run our Don't Dig Blind campaign, as you can see on the screen there, nationally, and embed that in every piece of communication that goes out to our groundbreaking community. It's a single voice, it's a unified message, and it's embedded into every piece of communication that we send out to the digging community. So we operate similar to what you have as the 811, although we do it predominantly online, which is our referral service, which is the Plan Exchange. We then have our education program that runs nationally around safe excavation and plan reading. We then do the lobbying and advocacy and just the broader safety partner with both construction and our utility members, such as Cookie, around safe practices when working in and around utility infrastructure.
That's great. Thanks, Val. Now, up next is Whitney with the PASA program.
So good afternoon or good morning to everybody. My name is Whitney Price and I work with ACTS now. I'll primarily be talking about the Pipeline Ag Safety Alliance program, or PASA. PASA started back in 2015 as kind of a unique approach to utility safety in rural environments. So we work directly with ag agents or extension professionals at land-grant universities all across the United States, directly with a group called the National Association of County Agricultural Agents. We did a survey way back pre-2015 to figure out who the trusted resource was in the ag community, and it was determined that extension professionals were that trusted resource. So we work with them as kind of a train the trainer style approach, and then they directly communicate with the farmers and the ranchers in the counties that they serve.
That's great. Thanks, Whitney. And now Perry.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. My name is Perry Sylvie. I'm with BT Construction, and our other group is called B Trenchless. So we do both underground utilities with open cut and cap style excavation, as well as trenchless operations. And about 5 years ago now, in 2019, we started a group, and this wasn't just our company. It was a group of safety professionals in the Denver metro area. There was an unfortunate occurrence of a trench collapse that occurred north Denver, and we got together to start trying to figure out how we could prevent those kinds of trench collapse fatalities. So we came up with the Trenching and Excavation Safety Task Force, aka TEST. And as a group, we came up with the logo there that you see on the screen, Think Inside the Box. It's a trench box that excavators are very familiar with, and it's a rust color, which is what color all trench boxes turn eventually. So something that's universal, something that hopefully can be resonating with all excavators in the underground world, and hopefully prevent fatalities. So we have a thinkinsidethebox.info website. We have a lot of social media going on, sharing different events that are occurring, different training events, as well as unfortunate fatalities that are occurring, and just trying to make it more well known that this is still a very dangerous situation, and we want to try to prevent those fatalities, those unfortunate unplanned events from occurring. So there's definitely a lot more to that story. We're going to talk more about that next week in another podcast or webinar that we're going to do here through the ESA. So appreciate you having me on here.
That's great. Thanks, Perry. And now, last but not least, Tim and your new program.
Hi, I'm Tim, and I work for Summit Utilities, and I'm also the president of the Distribution Public Awareness Council, where this campaign comes from. So a couple of years ago, we DPAC is a conglomerate of distribution operators, and we wanted to put some messaging together around what to do if you detect a gas leak or you smell gas. So the intended purpose behind this was similar to a stop, drop, and roll like you do with fire safety. We wanted to have a catchy slogan, catchy messaging that would just resonate with general audiences, and So I'm really excited about how this turned out, and excited to talk about it. So thank you guys.
That sounds great. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so now we'll go around kind of the horn here with the first question, which is what are the key components of your public awareness campaign? And one of the things that you kind of blended into the same thing is like one of the really cool things is you all have pretty good taglines and think inside the box and great slogans. So you can talk about where that comes from. And why don't we start with since Tim, you were just up, why don't we go with you and how this whole wait a minute, excuse
Yeah.
me, detect dash dial came about?
Well, we started on this project probably 2 years ago. And like I said, we're a conglomerate of distribution operators. And so it wasn't just coming from one company. It wasn't just one idea. And so it was really challenging to try to, you wouldn't think just coming up with a catchy slogan would be a difficult choice, but we went through smell, hear, see, all these other, I mean, we went through probably 5 or 6 different models before we really kind of landed on one. But the main thing we were, really considering was your target audience and, how well it would be received. We wanted it to be kind of catchy, so it, similar to a jingle on a radio ad or something like that. So that was kind of the thought process behind it. But it was really challenging to kind of get what we wanted, and we made lots of changes along the way, but I'm happy with the result where we landed on it. So
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, how about you, Perry?
Yeah, so when we got started, we really started in actually another industry group office, and there was probably about 60 safety professionals in the room. And so we were really upset about this particular incident that occurred. There were 2 people that died in a trench collapse, and one of those individuals was able to speak through a pipe in the ground for a couple hours to the firefighters, and then they brought his wife out to the site to talk to her one last time before he died. And that just really resonated with a group of us. So we immediately started meeting in the office next door. We had the regional area director for OSHA happened to be there. So he started meeting with us as well and helping us to brainstorm and come up with some ideas. He actually had a sticker that he had in his possession. It was just a little 2-inch sticker that said, "Think inside the box." There was no picture or anything like that, but just the concept was just, it really hit home with us. And it was something, again, we always think outside the box when we come out with new ideas, but to have that tagline of, hey, this is an idea that works. This is a protective system that does its job. And we don't need to think of new ideas. If we just use a trench box, we can protect the employees, from that cave-in risk. So that was really how we got our start, was really just brainstorming that. Right away, we had some resources. We don't have sponsors. We don't make money or anything like that. We're a bunch of volunteers and volunteers from other organizations that have maybe some resources that we can utilize. Like one company decided to open a website for us. So we've got that thinkinsidethebox.info website. And it's just a splash page of all the trench safety resources and anything that you need for training or any upcoming events that are coming up. So just a way to help really reach those people that are needing to be reached. We've noticed a lot of these companies that have this challenge are these smaller organizations, a couple guys in a backhoe going to dig these deep excavations, a lot of times sewer excavations and things for a residential. So we're trying to figure out how can we reach to that demographic. So I think a lot of you guys on this call are also in that same boat where you're trying to reach a very specific demographic, because it's a lot of times these people that don't necessarily follow the rules, or maybe they don't understand the rules. And it's a lot of this education that we're trying to do. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from everybody else and some ideas you have, because maybe there's some things that we can pull away from this as well, and be able to raise the bar in trench safety. So yeah, appreciate you guys having me on here.
Yeah, you bet. No, that's great. And you're right, Perry, that having a very targeted audience is is actually kind of a dream for a marketer, right? Because at least you can really hone your message in, and that tagline you guys have is great. Whitney with Paso will go next, and it's a little harder for them to have just a message, right? Because it's a broader thing, but they found the great avenue to get to these people that she can tell you about, as opposed to just trying to have a tagline and short message.
Yeah, so with the PASA program, our end audience is, of course, the farmer and the rancher, but not only understanding kind of what makes them tick, what it's trusted resource that the ag agents are trusted. The farmer and the rancher goes to these extension professionals for training, for advice, for all these kind of things throughout the year. And this core group is a resource for them. So if we can get these ag agents to be safe digging advocates and really care about their farmers and ranchers in their communities, we found that it's been wildly successful, and it's kind of like a domino effect. We're able to reach out to one agent who can then reach out to 200 or 300 farmers and ranchers in multiple counties that they serve. So it's I think the biggest piece is really understanding your audience. So the farmer and the rancher, at least in our market, some respond to fear. So it's incident based. It's showing them case studies and things like that. And then some are more responsive to finances and the long-term effects of damage to their land. That actually resonate with them. And both of those avenues get to that end all goal of just keeping pipelines and utilities safe and keeping farmer and rancher safe along the same line. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've been on the fringe of this for a while, and it's an amazing thing to see how passionate these county ag agents are. It's like one of the things that really makes our industry work is these people are just thirsty for education, from what I can see, and going out and helping the farmers. So it's great when you know your audience is super receptive. So thanks, Whitney. Why don't we jump over to Mel now?
Thanks. So our current campaign is Don't Dig Blind, which obviously simulates the fact that you should never dig blind. You should know what's below before you stick a shovel or an excavator in the ground. And we chose that tagline for this particular campaign because it allows us to create imagery and sound and supporting information for a whole range, from agriculture through to construction, through to young apprentices to homeowners, because we can swap out the images, the background video, and the supporting safety elements to go with it. So it allows us to use it multiple times across all of Australia. It's then supported by my education team, which go out and do toolbox talks out on site or attend ag field days. We do about 1,000 of those a year. Last year, we had about a participation rate of about 15,000 participants in our toolbox talks, plus another outreach of approximately 35,000 through our ag field days and trade events. We do television campaigns through major sporting events. So we have rugby league and AFL here in Australia. I doubt any of you know what that is. It's a little different to NFL. Also during cricket. And then we have radio campaign all year round. And we utilize the Don't Dig Blind various cuts for 30-second grabs on radio. And they play in every state in Australia on both regional and metro, so AM and FM, depending on trying to get across the various audiences, depending if they're listening to rock or country or talkback.
Yeah, it's great the way you can target that message, and that really helps. And I think we talked about this a little bit in the planning call, but also in Australia and some parts of the world, you seem to be able to use more dramatic kinds of ads than most people are willing to here in the US.
Yeah, well, we're not afraid of shock and awe here in Australia. So particularly with our Don't Dig Blind campaign, one of the cuts is of a motorbike rider, and he puts a blindfold on and takes off, and it cuts just before he hits a tree. And we stipulate, you wouldn't do that blindfolded. Why would you risk electrocution and death from excavating blindfolded? And I think the Australians, we're a little bit more open to controversy when it comes to imagery and sound effects. We're a little bit rough and ready here. It's our convict past. So we're all more open to that. And we definitely leverage both shock and awe, but we also leverage humor, because I think, again, you've got to recognize that different things will resonate with different audiences. So again, we do cut through with humor, as well as the scare tactics, as well as then financial impact for business owners. And we try to ensure that we choose taglines that allow us to do all of the above so that we get as much bang for buck out of our team's efforts, the expense and everything else, that we can utilize it as much as possible.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's really impressive and really hard. I don't think that can be understated how hard it is to come up with a line that has that much versatility. And Cookie, and you're up next, and you've obviously got a tagline too that is just perfect and so descriptive. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the Look Up and Live tagline, certainly can't claim that one for myself because it's been around for, probably 50 years, possibly. Because we do see numerous fatalities in all regions, and I'll just mention some stats for you guys in the US. I'm not sure whether people would realize this, but there are 2 fatalities every single week on average in the US. So 2 people every single week, non-electrical workers, will hit overhead power lines and be a fatality. So it happens an awful lot. We see it in Australia and New Zealand about 7 times a year on average. So yeah, just that bluntness of the message, look up and live. But I do a lot of face-to-face type education pieces like Mel was talking about, and we leverage a lot from Before You Dig to do those messaging for our business, particularly for underground. But we're getting to that point now where we need Before You Dig to be doing both messages. So we've actually got a tool called the Look Up and Live app. So we've got to a point where it's more than a slogan now. We've got an app. If everyone wants to check lookupandlive.com or go to the App Store, you can download the Look Up and Live app, which is a mapping application which maps all the power lines in Australia. So it gives people the opportunity to plan their work in their overhead power lines, much like 811 or OneCall or utility safety partners, all the different tools out there. People just don't plan well enough around overhead power lines. So just having the tagline as well as a product to promote really helps it. So we're looking forward to getting that Look Up and Live app across to Before You Dig and have them advertise it in a more fearful way, I suppose, to get that message out there.
Yeah, because that's good stuff. So you're, if I remember right, you're now teaming up with Before You Dig Australia, right? You're going to kind of fall under that umbrella. Is that true for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get it across and get Mel and her teams out there to promote overhead and underground awareness. Very similar to what Utility Safety Partners has done in Canada and Alberta. So
yeah, it's a great idea, and we are seeing a little bit more of that in the US. It just seems like such an obvious thing to do is to combine the two.
Look, we're all about damage prevention, and I sort of say to people all the time, damage prevention is damage prevention, right? It doesn't matter whether it's above or below. And I think if a lot of people, particularly power line owners, have a look at their stats, they will find that it's around 10 to 1. So 10 overhead versus 1 underground. Just have a look at the electrical assets. There's a lot more overhead hit than underground, just pure from human factors. People just don't see power lines because they're busy. Say if you're an excavator, for example, you're concentrating on the work that you're doing. You simply just do not see the power lines. Your brain turns off and concentrates what you're working on.
No, that's a great point. And we have a question in the chat. I'm just going to throw it to anybody who, and obviously this will be a little bit different country to country, but somebody's asking here, looks like Doug S., how do you register or trademark slogans and taglines? And I'm not sure if anybody has firsthand experience. I can give a little bit of mine, but see if anybody here already has it.
We have not done so with ours. I know initially when we developed it, we were only going to use it within our members, and now we want it to be used by everyone. So we haven't really explored the route of trademarking or registering. So, but we haven't done ours. So.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. We have not registered ours or trademarked it. We're a group of volunteers who happen to come up with the idea, but yeah, we're not quite there yet, and we're not sure how to do it. So yeah, maybe that's something that we can get some insight on from somebody that does have experience with that.
Yeah,
Here in, I was just gonna say, here in Australia, it's we've obviously word marked like the logo and imagery that you can see behind me here. But in terms of Don't Dig Blind, it's very difficult to get it word marked because there's such common words and their interplay. And so we've just taken the approach that, you know, we want everybody to use it. We want all of our members, we want our groundbreaking community to be able to reference Don't Dig Blind in their own safety materials. So for us, it's around the common good, and you know, we want everybody to get home safe. And if that means using our taglines and our slogans, go for it.
yeah, I can tell you from a US experience that the biggest single thing is using it and documenting that you use it. That's actually even more important in the US than filing the formal registration. I can tell you one short anecdote, the post right behind Tim there back in my Rhino days, called a TriView, and we did not trademark it for a long time. And when I finally did, turns out somebody else had already received the trademark, but we had been using it longer, so their trademark was actually kicked out and ours was awarded. And it turns out the guy wasn't in conflict anyway, so we said, fine, go ahead and use it. But I guess the only point I would say is the thing it does give you, if you do choose to go down that road, is I think everybody's on the same page, like you want people to use it. So it's not about trying to limit that, but it does create consistency. If you do trademark it, it gives you the ability to enforce having it look similar, the same fonts. I mean, you're not going to take, most people, I should say, aren't going to take people to court or anything like that, but it gives you that leverage. So anyway, that's just, and it's not really very expensive. I would guess in many cases in the US anyway, you might be able to find a law firm that might do it pro bono because you're not doing it for profit. So, or you might have an in-house attorney. But anyway, so, well, that's good. I think that helps answer that question a little bit. The next question we kind of have lined up is, how do you effectively engage and communicate with diverse audiences? And I think Mel talked about that a little already with setting their ads and things up so that they can customize them. And I don't know if any of the others of you have thought that through with the different groups that you're trying to reach out to. Do you do something different to get to those people?
I can
know-
talk for PASA.
Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead, Whitney.
I was just going to say, on the PASA side, at least, we kind of have to go a little bit of a different approach. We talk to the agents and figure out what is the best way that they communicate with farmers and ranchers. So we ask that every year to figure it out. And time after time, it seems to be face-to-face communication. So at their training events and things like that. So then we can kind of customize our specific educational resources for that. So we created a farm and ranch specific excavation safety guide. So we hand that out every year. We send it out to ag agents for free, and then they can kind of utilize that when they're doing field days and stuff like that. And then our agents seem to be very, they seem to use like Facebook and Twitter a lot. So then we'll customize messages to get to that audience through kind of more of a social media channel. So it's kind of feeling it out a little bit differently, and then just creating those messages that obviously they're willing to share and pass along.
Tim, I think you were going to jump in.
Yeah, stole my thunder, but that's okay. I was just gonna say, you know, for our ad, it's really such a broad audience, and so we're the same thing: social media, physical print, variations, whether they're a banner icon with minimal messaging or a full-on page with lots of text to read. So we explored all of those options and had templates done up for all of those things. And so we're really just kind of casting a broad shot across this to see what sticks. And I think too, having some way to kind of gauge your audience on, like, to what Whitney said, you know, what their preference is, whether it's a survey or a poll or online, you know, especially with social media, you can see how many reactions you get or shares, likes, things like that, to kind of help you know, moving forward, how you need to tailor your messaging. So
Yeah, and then
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, to effectively engage and communicate to the diverse audiences is a major challenge because there's so many different levels of an organization, levels of business that is occurring out there. So for us, we've really done most of our marketing up, I would call it at this level, right? This is a level of really a lot of safety professionals are going to be on LinkedIn, or they're going to be on a professional network of some sort, and maybe be a part of an organization like ESA. And so this is really where we'd start with this and hope that we would begin to work the message to the people that really need to hear it most. So we have utilized Facebook and Twitter and those other pages as well. But then the other major thing we're doing is we got with our local damage prevention team through 811 in Colorado, and we actually have the Damage Prevention Council there that actually helped support some outreach events that we did. So we went out to a construction site. It was actually, there was a couple different times we've done this where we brought breakfast burritos out to the group out there, and we did an hour-long training. And the first portion of the training was damage prevention, where we had Colorado 811 there to really present, hey, here's how we're going to make sure to prevent damage to the existing utilities out there. And then we'd step in and do a little bit of training on trench safety while we're there, and really hand out stickers, because really the hard hat stickers, those are like gold for the guys in the field, right? They collect those. They want to see as many as they can on their hard hats. So the Think Inside the Box sticker was something that went a really long way. A little 2-inch sticker. It's very inexpensive, and it gets the word out to the people that really need to hear it most, the people that are actually doing the work out in the field. And then hopefully somebody asks them, hey, where'd you get that sticker? And they can be like, oh, Think Inside the Box. Well, it's a trench safety thing we just went to. And hopefully it starts to really grow that training organically through each other, really talking amongst each other. So that's again the engagement that we're looking for, organically, grassroots efforts. And I think you guys are all kind of in that same boat, trying to get those messages to grow organically. So stickers, that's the idea there that we're really pushing.
I'd agree with you, Perry. I don't know if we can see this, but this is the most popular sticker we've got. I made it to go on the back of a phone with the QR code for our app. So this goes on the back of our staff's phone. So when they're out there talking to people, whether it be at a community event or giving people advice to work near power lines, or at a local barbecue or out to dinner with somebody, they can share the app and get them to scan that QR code. So stickers do go a long way, but everything, it all works together, right? So, from a social media campaign to stickers to that face-to-face interaction, not one thing is going to solve our problems here. If it was easy, we would have solved this 70 years ago, right? So it's a difficult one to do. So, but I must see some campaigns miss the true audience. So if you're engaging with creative agencies, you need to make sure that they're talking to the subject matter experts first, because I find that the message gets muddled between a marketing group and the subject matter experts. So sometimes a campaign can be created and looks beautiful, and it's got a message, but it's actually been targeted at the wrong audience because they haven't engaged with the subject matter expert from the start. And I've had campaign creative agencies say, oh, why don't we should have spoke to Cookie straight up. We would have done a different campaign. So just important to make sure that the creative people are actually talking to the subject matter experts to get that audience right. Otherwise you fail before you start.
And I want to add one more thing in here. So not only having the stickers on the hard hats, but putting the stickers with the company logo added to it. So then that way your company can then buy off on the marketing strategy as well. So it's not something that's just this other sticker that you're trying to convince the team to put on your hard hats. Like, we've put our own company logo on the bottom of that, and we left room inside the box for a company to put their own logo in there. So just, again, an idea, a concept that maybe might help with growing that whole campaign organically is to be able to provide that logo in some way, to be able to allow them to put their own logo or own campaign with that. It's kind of the dual purpose logo sticker there. So
Yeah, we did a lot of the co-branding as well, or left an open space. So, yep, great idea.
It is, and that's like Fiona just put from Georgia 811 in the chat too, that they actually have people, they let everybody use it. They did the International Locate Rodeo and came up with that logo, and they were letting people use that, but they did have them just sign a document, because that's a really good way to Perry's point, to let people know that this is what that little box is for, so that they do look consistent, because that is a big deal with branding, is you really want a consistent message, a consistent look. And so building that in is a great step, but then you have to make sure people understand that. And Mike Sullivan did say they had a hard time getting the clickbeforeyoudig.com. I don't know if that was because it was a .com, and he was also talking about Don't Dig Blind, that that campaign got used by ATCO a few years back. I don't know. ATCO has facilities, I think, in Australia, right? So maybe that's where they got the idea, or vice versa. But anyway, so I'm sorry. Did anybody else have anything else to add to that particular question?
I think it's the multi-level approach. Like all of our campaigns, we never rely just on social. We never rely just on radio or TV. To be honest, our best engagement is our face-to-face toolbox talks, our sessions when we're out there talking to people on their job site about their challenges and their problems. And I think you have to make sure that your campaigns are multifaceted where you can, or leverage arms and legs across, your member organizations, your 811s, etc., so that you're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Because that is what gets the cut through. It's when they hear things multiple times and that messaging being reinforced across every touch point is when you see the behavior change. So it's very important that, there's no simple thing. Otherwise we wouldn't have a job if it was easy.
Mel, here in the US, we do a lot of bilingual messaging. Do you guys see similar challenges in Australia?
Yeah, particularly with our construction workforce at the moment. So again, literacy rates are quite low. We tend to see, average literacy rates, sitting at around 14, 15 years of age, or grade 10, which is what we call here in Australia, and English is second or third language. So here within Before You Dig, we're starting to look at how we can leverage AI to rapidly translate our messaging across 4 or 5 languages, and leverage those technology advances so that we can keep pace with that need. Because it's also really important, I think, as a utility industry, that we meet the users of our service and the guys and girls out in the field where they're at. I think we absolutely have to take our message to them in ways that they can consume it and it's comfortable for them to then put into their day-to-day practice, rather than expecting them to just get it, or they should just know what that means. It doesn't work. We have to actually be a good partner and making sure that we're meeting them where they need us to be.
It's very, very similar in the agricultural sector too. It's hard to get that message across. And we're talking about industries there before and targeting the right audience. And Whitney would be interested in this because we say agriculture. Well, agriculture is huge, right? So the 3 biggest agriculture in Australia is sort of grains, cotton, and sugarcane, and the crops are very different. So they use very different equipment. So they have different risks when it comes to overhead power line safety. So I suppose you could use a general tractor, but that doesn't mean much for everybody. Whereas if you use a cane harvester, then the cane industry knows that's for me, right? Or a cotton harvester, that's for us. You know what I mean? So if they look at something and it doesn't have their piece of equipment in it, people just turn off. A lot of our campaigns in the past is, people have used like stock images, and a lot of the stock images are from the US. So a truck in the US looks very different to a truck in Australia. They just look different. Plus people are sitting on the wrong side of the truck, right? So people notice it and they go, no, that's not for me. That's a truck from the US or North America, right? So they turn off straight away. Just simple stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's a big deal. We ran into that when we were put on the Oceania Damage Prevention Conference back in Australia, and we were creating graphics over here and getting that kind of feedback. Luckily, before we put it out there, we asked some Australians, and they said no. So yeah, that's critical. And Mike Sullivan also put up here the utility safety partners is this is in terms of getting your message out over and over. Is he said they submitted a best practice to the CCGA to incorporate the click before you dig .com or a QR code on buried utility markers, signs and decals. And we were already doing that at Rhino, or we were pushing it to our customers to try and get them to do it. But boy, that kind of awareness it's free. It doesn't cost anything to add, and it really helps build it up. So finding those ways to reach people inexpensively is a big deal. If any of you run into any real big resistance from certain groups or anything to your campaigns?
No, I was curious, have any of you partnered with state or federal agencies or regulators to kind of help get them on board with promoting?
Yeah, so here in Australia, one of our larger regulators, Energy Safe Victoria, which manages gas and electricity safety for the state, we partner with them in both presentations, and we've also got a range of no-go zone stickers and posters, which are around, safe approach distances for excavators for both above and underground. They're all co-branded with Energy Safe's logo, our logo, and WorkSafe's logo. So we find that really powerful when you can show that this is a message right from the top all the way down. And so we do look to do that where we can, and also co-branding with other peak bodies around the place. So where we can have our messaging sitting alongside other peak industry groups that represent workers or users of the service, we find that really powerful as well.
Have you seen any policy change? Because I think really probably the goal of all of our campaigns would be to see a behavior change. So have you seen any policy change with as those partnerships have developed?
Yeah, so here in Australia, we are working quite closely on policy reform to mandate the use of the services for users around the country. And what we find is the most powerful of that is damage data. So damage data tells a story, but not only around risk to life and injury, but also economic impact modelling for the flow-through costs to community. And so we're just about to leverage an independent economic impact study here for Australia to validate what is the cost to taxpayers and the community due to disruption, because that's what motivates our politicians here. It's all about the dollars being spent.
I think it's important too, because Before You Dig does a great job for us, because Energy Queensland is a member of Before You Dig. So we're being regulated by the regulators, whereas Before You Dig is a non-for-profit damage prevention company. So, they can leverage and get more meetings and, advocate for legislation change as well as us. But I think Before You Dig's got a lot more power for us in that respect, because it's a conglomerate of members as well. So you're talking as a united voice.
Yeah, and Brent from Louisiana, from Louisiana 811 has a comment in here too, the kind of along Mel's lines of that, they use the 811 call 811 logo, but their ad agency came up with a bunch of different taglines to go with that, so they can reach different audiences, get their attention. That's simple and not always easy as it sounds, but somebody here, Bria, looks like had a firehouse campaign where one of the firehouses put call 811 before your gravel, your own gravel. I couldn't find it.
Dig your own grave. That's what it says there.
Thank you.
Before You Dig Australia has done same one actually. Don't dig your own grave. It was a really good campaign, excellent campaign. I will call out the Where's the Line campaign in Alberta put out some really good campaigns over the years. Obviously that's now been brought across into utility safety partners. So I know whether you've got any of the old campaigns there, Mike, but there's some really good ones over the years in there.
We had started out with think inside the box before you end up in one of these boxes, and it was a coffin box that we had a picture of. So that was for our first event that we did, but we weren't sure we wanted to have that extreme of a message, so we wanted to try to keep it somewhat tame, if you will.
Yeah,
Shock and awe,
and to-
Perry. Shock and awe.
Yeah, and to absolutely to change safety behaviours, you have to instill fear, and the fear needs to be medium or high, to get that feeling of self-worth, to get back home to your family, and then to actually get the safety change. You have something easy for someone to do, which is basically, go to a website or download an app to actually do something more, or do a referral. So for us, we've all got tools that people can go to get the plans they need, or make a plan. So if you can get the audience right, instill some fear, and do it in an entertaining way, which is the hard bit, you can be very successful. And I will call out here, there's been a campaign in New Zealand, and it's around don't play around power cables or gas, or it's all incorporated into one campaign. They've done a really good job instilling fear in an entertaining way. I'll share it in a second as well, but check it out. They've done a really good job in New Zealand, but as we were mentioning before, New Zealanders have got a very different sense of humour. So it's an interesting one to look at. I really like their ads. They're quite funny, but in a serious way. So
Yeah, I think some of the pushback we get here, and it seems to be less and less in the US, but is when people use the shock and awe stuff, they're afraid they're making the kind of the product look bad or dangerous. Gas is dangerous or electric is dangerous. Well, it's not if you do the right thing. And so it's a fine line, but to me, it sure seems like you get more attention and then change behavior more successfully by using some of the shock and awe and humor. But I don't know that there's any scientific data to prove that, but it sure seems like it to me.
Well, and a lot of the videos that we share on the LinkedIn page, there's I don't know, 14,000 people that follow our page, and that's been the biggest thing that's gotten the most attention is when we show trench collapses where people get buried in the dirt. And there's sometimes when they get out and sometimes when they probably don't get out, but those are the ones that have the biggest impact, or at least the most views. We're seeing 100,000 views on a video, and those are the shock and awe videos. So yeah, there is definitely something to be said for shock and awe, and it does get attention, and hopefully that attention will help to drive the message to the people that need to hear it most.
Yeah, I agree. And I think probably most people here have seen the Eric Jaguar who was buried alive, or Cliff Meidel, some of those speakers, and it's the live shock and awe. It's like, well, I won't even step in a little indention in the ground after watching Eric Jaguar and listening to his story. But yeah, it can be impactful. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Whitney. You were going to say something, I think.
Well, yeah, and I think too, fear can be a couple different things. It can be that shock and awe and saving a life, and I think it can be that financial impact too. Like some of these farmers are like, this farm's been in my family for generations. I'm planning to pass it on. So if anything were to happen, I mean, there goes my livelihood. So I think you can kind of position it a little bit differently based on kind of what speaks to your audience.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And that's good. People are putting up some good examples and things in the chat. So I just want to point that out to everybody. So if you have your chat turned off, you want to turn it on once and look at it, because there's some good stuff, and we will end up posting that as well. But okay, that's good.
I think those personal experiences really always tie it in. I know from our campaign, I spent about 9 years as a service technician responding to natural gas leaks or calls, and I can't tell you the amount of times where I showed up to one and somebody is like, "Oh, we've been smelling that for months. We just thought we might called it in." So it just blows your mind that and the same thing like 811. I mean, I run into people all the time, and they still have no idea what 811 is, and it's on baseball diamonds and billboards and radio, and it's like we just cannot do enough to get that out there. But I think just repetition, and if you feel like you're oversharing it too much, then share it again, because there is somebody out there that hasn't heard the message. So that's my 2 cents.
absolutely.
You're spot on. Oh, that's great. Let me see if we had anything else here I'm missing. nothing else coming up big in the chat. Lots of great comments. I think we are kind of running near the end, so I want to give people enough time here to, go to that kind of last thing of, for each of you, what are the top couple things that with your unique program that you think have been the most effective, kind of summarize so that people can take those and hopefully actually implement them. Tim, I'm going to put you on the spot. It's unfair because you guys haven't been around long enough.
Yeah.
So maybe no, but we can start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, probably the biggest takeaway I've learned through this process was learning to take some disappointments, and things are not always going to go. You can start off with a grand idea for a campaign. You need, leadership buy-in. You need funding. You need support. You go through this planning phase, and so by the time you get to ready to roll it out, and then it flops on its face or it's not received the way you intended it to be, don't get discouraged with that. Some of these things take some time and some traction for them to move along, and that's kind of where we're at right now. It didn't roll out the way we anticipated it, but I don't want that to discourage me from continuing to promote it. So that's my takeaway: is don't give up if it doesn't just make a huge splash right away. Sometimes things take a lot longer to develop, but we're looking for long-term sustainability, right? And behavior change long-term. And so that's the end goal that you want to, move towards. So.
Yeah, great point. How about you, Perry?
Yeah, so we give a talk on really how we spread our message, and really it starts with just picture a water droplet, and that water droplet then starts to attach to other water droplets, and that water droplet's your message, and you essentially are growing that message, and the more you grow, the bigger that water that body of water becomes, and before you know it, it's becoming this river flowing through social media and all over people's mindset. So really your water droplet is something that you need to continue to splash into the public and really get the word out. So, for us, think inside the box is a message that makes sense, and it's one that resonates because we've all heard that think outside the box message, and this one's just catchy enough that it is something that can be spread. So be that water droplet, be that one person that's willing to spread your message. And if all of us are spreading the message, then it's going to grow and it's going to become a very large message that people are going to hear all over the world. I'm speaking with people from Australia right now, so we're able to talk to people all around the world on this message. And I think all of us have that power that we can do that now, especially with social media. So get out there and speak about your message, because it is powerful and it will spread. It will become that big body of water that we all want it to be, and become the message that will help save lives. That's what we're all trying to do here. So just excited to be able to share this with you guys. One last thing for me is to go to thinkinsidethebox.info and scroll all the way to the bottom. And that logo is free to download. We have it in English and Spanish. And that logo, it's in PNG or JPEG version, and that can be printed on any size, and you can add your own logo to it and make it your own.
That's great. Thanks, Perry. And I will, this is where I'll put in the plug for next Thursday. Perry's doing a webinar on the Think Inside the Box program. And so particularly when it's free to any ESA member, and being an ESA member is free. So I guess what I would advocate is, especially if you deal with contractors, excavators, get the word out to them. When you see the email, come forward it to people who you think should sit in on Perry's webinar next week. So that's great. And then I'll jump up to Mel.
Yeah, I think everybody sort of really covered it. I think one tagline, many ways, is one of our biggest learning. Like, pick that tagline that you can cut and dice it 1,000 times and get that cut through. And again, like the social media, it doesn't all have to be high cost campaigns. Social media allows us to be so agile. You can do, everyone's a film crew these days with our phones, and I think utilize that, and I encourage all of my team to post in their own narrative on LinkedIn, on channels, so that, you know, you spread that voice, spread those arms and legs far and wide. So I think don't stress that, you know, if you don't have high budgets to do really high tech, you know, television quality campaigns, you can do great social media campaigns, low cost, leverage AI to create imagery, and just get out there and be agile. You know, if it doesn't quite hit, cut it again, flick it out the next day on socials. That's the beauty of it.
Great. Whitney, how about you?
I would say at least the biggest successor for ours is just finding out how to kind of engage with our audience the most. We do t-shirts, so like the stickers and like people are putting in the chats, you know, baseball caps and stuff. The last couple of years we've done this luncheon where we give a t-shirt out to anybody that shares a testimonial, asks a question or a concern. It doesn't matter what it is, just simply engages with us and has a dialogue. And we've gotten kicked out the last 2 years because we've run over time. But that's a good problem to have. I mean, people want to stay and they want to talk, and then it leads to a lot of really good dialogue, and it kind of helps us foster a culture of those safe digging advocates, and empowers our audience, our agents, to kind of own that title and feel like they can share it and feel comfortable sharing it with the farmers and the ranchers that they talk to. So.
Yeah, I think part of the goal you hit was that the people, you found the right audience and they're so passionate about it, it really makes it a lot easier, which is great. And Cookie, how about you?
I think we've all spoken about it, but yeah, the biggest thing for me is instilling that little bit of fear in an entertaining way, and it's hard to do, but if you can jag that, you're going to be successful as long as you targeted the right audience. So yeah, and having a good, like Mel says, it doesn't have to be the best looking campaign. Like I do screen recordings of different things, and even short little snippets on some of my presentations and put it on LinkedIn. And yeah, sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it depends what time I put it up. Like I might put up a short little picture of myself, which might have been good for Australian audiences, and I completely missed North America. So I got to sort of pick me time when I sort of put stuff up. So yeah, just like Perry said, LinkedIn's a good spot to sort of try out some of these campaigns too, because there's good safety professionals and different people in different industries. And yeah, just when you're doing merchandise and that, think about what your audience wants. Someone mentioned the baseball caps. We've got some baseball caps here that for Look Up and Live as well. Yeah, anything from what kids want to, because if it's even something that you give a child, if it drags in the parents to talk about something, you've jagged them, right? So there's certainly no easy answer. So
Yeah. Oh, it's great stuff. And what Cookie didn't mention is you can also you can write an inexpensive song and then record it and put it out there too, since Cookie's done that. I'm kind of surprised Mike Sullivan hasn't done that. Cookie's outdone him. But
yeah. If anyone wants to have a look, I have done a parody song on. I'll put the link in the description for you. Done a parody song on Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire." It's called "They Didn't See the Wire." So,
yeah. It's actually really good, and I think it's effective. It's fun, and it gets the message out there, right? So
thanks for reminding me about that, but I forgot.
Well, that's good. Well, I want to thank everybody, especially the panel, but also the tons of people in the audience who put all kinds of great stuff in the chat. This is probably the most resources I've ever seen put into the chat. So that's been really great. This is, I did mention the Perry's, special session next week. So don't miss that. And also there's Perry's information if you want to jot it down, but you will get an email. In addition, we have a survey that it's a really, really helpful, because that's where we get input on what we could do better and really what topics should we be covering in these town halls. And if there are other special events like Perry's that we can put up there, we need to know about them. So we really appreciate that. And we'll also have special events periodically and blog posts. So there's a lot of things coming out of this that you will get information on. And don't forget, I think there's another slide about our Locator Safety and Appreciation Week, So don't forget that. We came up with this, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now, and worked with NALCA on it. But locators, as everybody here on this call knows, they are the backbone of the industry. We have to show our appreciation. They have vital roles. And so there's a whole bunch of free tools. If you go to locator.safety.com, you can download and use in any country. So that's a great tip. And really, other than that, I want to make sure and thank everybody again for participating, and have a safe week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.